We all know that politics can be performative to different degrees, yes, a good amount of the time. The challenge for those of us in politics is to turn the performative into practical and effective action. Now, Doug Ford is a master at the former, but not so much the latter. Angry at the closure of a bottling factory, he'll dump out a bottle of Crown Royal very slowly. Yes, I mean uncomfortably slowly, right out of a Family Guy episode. He could, though, if he was inclined, instead make the same effort to reform provincial procurement rules, but fairly that might take actual work. Or he'll bring a novelty check of $400,000 for housing to Sarnia, only to discover at that announcement that the total funding is less than the price of a single average house in Sarnia. Get it done, indeed. If only governing was as easy as putting on a hat. Now, don't get me wrong, some performances are, of course, important. It is important that a leader speaks on behalf of us and that our values align. When I saw Doug Ford speak out against cruel animal testing, for example, I was cheering for him.
You can't be experimenting on dogs. They're part of our families, or cats. Full disclosure, I'm an animal lover, dog lover, and if you're doing this with dogs or cats, you got to stop before I catch you. Simple as that. Can't be doing this. Matter of fact, we're going to legislate this. We're going to make it very simple. You aren't going to be going after animals like that.
Of course, I am not going to hold my breath that he will take actual action. After all, this is a premier who has resurrected penned dog hunting, a practice that you have probably never heard of, but that is illegal in the rest of Canada and most of the US, that his own caucus has spoken out against, and that Mike Harris had actually started to phase out here in Ontario back in 1997. But it did get me thinking about our federal commitments to better protect animals. We have made some important, albeit imperfect, progress since 2015. A ban on shark finning, ending the captivity of whales and dolphins, modest action to strengthen animal cruelty in the criminal code, banning cosmetic testing on animals, a legislative commitment to phase out toxicity testing, and the introduction of the Jane Goodall Act. In this past election, we promised to reintroduce that legislation and also to introduce a bill to ban the live export of horses for slaughter, basically reiterating commitments from our 2021 platform. But the Prime Minister also made a much more personal commitment to protect animals this past election.
Please protect Canadian animals. That is, Karen, that is exactly the right thing. I can put it up in my office, and that will remind me to make sure that we spend time protecting the animals.
So, how to turn the performative into the practical? Well, to start, we need to realize the commitments we've made. It's as simple as that. When an all-party animal welfare caucus heard from experts in animal science, we learned that there is no way to humanely transport horses and planes as livestock for long distances. We cannot let a private member's bill die on a vine again. The government should ban the practice as promised. It should also fulfill the promise of legislation introduced by the late Murray Sinclair in the name of Jane Goodall to better protect animals in captivity. There is a consensus on how to move forward. It was a promise made, and it is an easy win for animals. With the public and, yes, the Premier's interest in animal testing, there's also a major role for our federal government to play. So let's take advantage of the performance to do some good. After all, while we have made positive progress in banning cosmetic testing on animals and adopting a legislative commitment to phase out toxicity testing on animals more broadly, a recent Health Canada draft strategy to actually implement that commitment is entirely unfunded. Worse, we failed to fund the Canadian Centre for Alternatives to Animal Methods, a research facility directly focused on these questions. Other countries, they significantly fund similar centers. But this center, our center, it lived off lab space provided by the University of Windsor and private donations, only to close its doors in May of last year because no government stepped up to play the proper public role. So with a budget coming up, maybe a tough budget, a very tiny fraction of new spending would go a long way to turning a performative promise into practical action to protect animals. And with Parliament resuming, I'll be working to establish an animal welfare caucus alongside interested colleagues. If you have other ideas for how we can best protect animals, let me know. And I know it's not the top priority for this government, nor should it be the top priority, but animals think, love, and feel. Our laws should reflect that reality, and a promise is a promise all the same. Performance is, of course, welcome at times. We all enjoy a good performance, but performance without follow-through, that is just bad theater. Speaking of bad theater, let's finish where we started, and let me leave you with this.